Hello everybody, this is Zombie, and welcome back to another video. This is actually a different video, but still kind of the same. We're going to be looking at a game that was part of a live stream during a tournament at a local game store that I just played in. The game store is Viral Card Games here in Minnesota. And we had a challenge tonight, so I went and faced that and ended up on stream. So I wanted to show you guys that that battle. You're gonna see me over on your right side of the screen. I am playing Dragapult Lost Zone because Stellar Crown is not yet legal during the time of this tournament. So I went with a tried and trusty deck that I'm used to. I'm going to be playing against a Raging Bolt deck. You can't really tell from our opening, from our start here. You can see I do go second. I start with a Radiant Alakazam, and he starts with a Fezandipiti EX. It then ends up getting out the Sandy Shocks. So we don't see any of our stars out on the field from the start, and it doesn't change much. I'm gonna be honest with you. This game here entirely was pretty slow on both ends, but it was once we get towards the end game, it gets kind of crazy, and it's actually really close. I wanted to show it off. Plus, it's a stream game. You don't get to see that often much. Like in-person games. The audio of it isn't great, and it's just us kind of muttering what we're doing on our turns anyway, so it's not super interesting. So I figured I'd give you a little commentary over the top, and to kind of tell you what I was thinking at moments, and then also what cards are being played, because sometimes it's a little hard to see the cards, and we'll get a little like Glitch X City or some kind of music underneath here. But turn one, we see the Earthen Vessel, Trekking Shoes, get some grass energies, get attached to the Sandy Shocks. I get out a Buddy-Buddy Poffin so I can get two Comfeys out. Unfortunately, I don't have any Dreepies yet, and that does continue to be a problem. I can switch my Radiant Alakazam out using a Switch Cart for a Comfey, play a Colress Experiment, end up dropping an Iono and a Comfey into the Lost Zone. That Iono being in the Lost Zone actually does become a problem late in the game. A little bit of spoilers for y'all, but then I do the flower selecting. I end up having to choose between Fezandipiti EX and Switch, so I drop the Switch in the Lost Zone, keep the Fezandipiti, and then I have to attach an energy to manually retreat into my other Comfey to do another Lost Zone, and I dropped Thorton in the discard. I think I picked up Dragapult or Colress Experiment. I can't remember which one it was. It's hard to see my hand. But Thornton would have also been a useful card later in the game. That's kind of the drawback with Lost Zone. A lot of your important cards end up in the Lost Zone, which isn't awesome. But on my opponent's turn, he ends up playing the Professor Sawtha's Vitality, so he can attach a Grass Energy to Sandy Shocks, and then attaches a Electric Energy to Sandy Shocks. It's very much becoming a Sandy Shocks deck. You wouldn't think it'd be a Raging Bolt deck at this point, but he's going to use Prime Catcher to get the free switch. Mostly it's for the free switch into his Sandy Shocks, because he's going to bring up a Comfey and KO it here. With Sandy Shock's primary attack, which does a ton of damage, some more energy is attached. So I just put up my other Comfey, get a Dreepy down, get a Fezandipiti, so I can get the draw from Flip the Script. And then we're going to be able to flower selection as well. First I'm going to Nest Ball, because now I can get Cramorant out. I would have preferred to have done that last turn, but the cards just didn't play into it. So I get the Cramorant here to kind of start softening things up for Dragapult, once we're able to do that. Fortunately, we have a lone little baby Dreepy on the bench right now. We don't have the two Dreepies that I like to do. So he can get really easily targeted down, unfortunately. So maybe a Nest Ball for a Dreepy would have been better, because off of this Colress Experiment here, we can see a Comfey, Dragapult, a Lost Vacuum, I believe it was, and a Switch Cart. Yeah, I end up dropping one of the Dragapult and the Comfey into the discard. Keep the Switch Cart, so I can switch into the Cramorant. And then I believe there's an energy attached to the Dreepy. Nope, just going to spit innocently at the Sandy Shocks, getting it set up for a KO follow-up. My opponent's going to play Nest Ball. And at this point, I thought the Raging Bolt was going to come out, but he pulls out another Teal Mask, so really just not investing in the Raging Bolts quite yet. Which was interesting, but because my deck is also going really slow right now, I'm not really able to capitalize on the lack of Raging Bolts on the field, which is rather unfortunate. Like, if I could get a Dragapult next turn, we would have been flying high and fancy free, but unfortunately, a little bit of spoilers, that's not going to happen. This poor little Dreepy's going to get demolished this turn, unfortunately. He's going to get pulled up with the boss's orders, I believe. Well, we're going to see a Teal Dance from my opponent's Teal Mask Ogerpon, and then just a physical attach. You start building up this Ogerpon to attack rather than the Sandy Shocks or the Raging Bolt. And yep, there's the boss's orders for the Dreepy. And poor little baby Dreepy is just going to get absolutely destroyed. Oh, prematurely go for the KO, but then he does KO. After that, I promote the Cramorants again. Now I have the Buddy-Buddy, so I can get 2 Dreepies down, so they can't get... so at least one will survive the turn. At least that's my hope. But Cramorant's going to be able to get a KO here with the Spit instantly. We'll be able to move damage counters around with Radiant Kazam, so that we have a little bit of min-maxing on where our damage counters are. Gonna flip the script because my poor Dreepy died last turn. I get so many flip the script. It's crazy how many flip the scripts I get off, and still how long it takes for me to set up in this match. Gonna go for the Radiant Kazam to move 20 damage counters back to the Ogerpon. I figured I only need the 10 on there for Dragapult to KO, but I figured I might as well move the 2 because first off, those damage counters are be gone anyway. But also it gives me some extra damage to move around if I need to with Kazam later on. So I'm going to take the KO there, take my first KO of the game. My opponent is still ahead because they've been just bopping little babies off of my side of the field. But it looks like, hopefully, we'll be able to get a Dragapult going next turn, as long as I have the cards to do so. I mean, I've flipped the script twice already. And I'm probably going to do it a third time. I would hope I'm able to get a Dragapult at least next turn. And we'll be able to KO that Teal Mask and threaten the Fezandipiti. So my opponent has to figure out what they're going to do to counteract that ahead of time. And we'll see if they're able to do so. We're going to see the Teal Dance from the Ogerpon to attach the Grass Energy and draw a card. Play the Nest Ball, so now they'll be able to get out another Pokemon and start getting that set up for when this Ogerpon goes down. I believe he grabs another Ogerpon. I think he's just riding fancy free on the Ogerpons right now. I'm trying to peek in his deck too right now. There are Raging Bolts in the deck, but yeah, he's just not go. Or that's a Radiant Greninja? Maybe there isn't. There's gotta be, because there is a... Oh, spoilers. There's a few Raging Bolts that show up at the end. So I would think they were in the deck, but maybe they just weren't. Nope, I see one right there. There's one right after the Iono. But he goes for the Radiant Greninja. Additional draw. Flips out a Nest Ball real quick. Say, hey, look, I got another one of these. You ready for that? Shuffles deck. And then goes back in using the Earthen Vessel to discard a card, fight into energy cards. And this allows for the Radiant Greninja to start drawing. He's also building up his discard pile really big. And leaving Professor Sada's just building up either in his hand or easily drawable from his deck in the late game, which really ends up helping later on. We're going to see he grabs a Grass Energy and a Fighting Energy from the Earthen Vessel. A lot of shuffling in the live. See, this is why Pokemon TCG Live is not only a good app for practicing, it's good for just YouTube games in general, because we don't have this the shuffling in between, and I don't have a co-host to banter with. You know, I just have you guys to kind of banter at, and hopefully you respond to it positively. But yeah, now we will see the concealed cards. Or no, we're gonna see the flip the script first, and then we'll see the concealed cards. See, I think my opponent drew 2 Raging Bolts off of that. Yeah, he did. Or 3. Did he draw all 3 Raging Bolts off of that? Oh, that's crazy. We're going to see 1 hit the bench, and then the concealed cards from the Greninja. Discard energy, draw 2 cards. So he's got all the draw over there, and I got a whole lot of nothing hanging out. It's just Dreepy's waiting to die mostly. I do get the Fezandipiti often, but it's just not it's not flipping the right scripts, you know what I'm saying? He PokéStops into 2 trekking shoes. He does discard a Raging Bolt. We already saw he already has 2 more in his hand anyway, so it's not a big deal for him. He's going to decide to drop the Earthen Vessel from the trekking shoes to draw an additional card. And we know he has another trekking shoes in his hand. Just putting up some supporters to the top, so he knows which ones he wants to Pal Pad with, which I believe he plays next. Yep, Pal Pad, get 2 supporters, shuffle them into your deck. He's going for either the Professor Sada or the Boss's Orders. Both of them will be very helpful here. Professor Sada will, of course, power up the Raging Bolt. Boss's Orders, you can pull up a Dreepy and slap it in the face, or even Fezandipiti at this point. You can see how enthused and interested I am all the time. Raging Bolt, I don't... Like, this deck has a hard time against Raging Bolt, because Raging Bolt is just so fast that it's hard for this deck to get set up off a lot of the time. Like, if you get the perfect turn 1, Dragapult can fight Raging Bolt really easily, because there are, like, a lot of good combos with Dragapult's Phantom Dive on KOing Raging Bolts. But unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be that game. You can see the timer being messed with up at the top. But that is timing the round at the top, just so everybody knows how that goes. We can see that the second Raging Bolt drop to the bench to get that optimal energy attach if they do end up playing the Professor Sada. You can see the manual attach of the fighting energy for the turn. And then we're going to see the Bravery Charm on to this Ogerpon. Now, this Bravery Charm actually does mess me up a little bit. I only run a single Lost Vacuum in this deck. And I wanted to get the KO on this Ogerpon because it had so many of the energies that were on the board that I didn't want a Raging Bolt coming up and using all those energies. So I have all the pieces in my hand. I just needed to get to the point of having a Dreepy on the board. So Rare Candy into Dragapult EX, play the Neo Upper Energy, Lost Vacuum. I discard a Drakloak. I also have another Drakloak on the bench. Get rid of the Bravery Charm. And then I go for a Flip the Script to draw my 3 cards because my poor Cramorant got exploded last turn. Play the Buddy-Buddy. I just want another Dreepy. So I could possibly set up another Drakloak, but there's no Dreepies. There ain't no basics left in there at all. I believe there wasn't any left. If anything, it would be maybe a Comfey, maybe a Manaphy, but I don't think they're in there. I have so few cards left in my deck, it's hard to shuffle it at this point. It was very sad how much I had to get through to finally get set up during this game. But we're here now, full power Dragapult. We have a Drakloak on the bench. And then I'm like, hey, what do I want to do here? So I'm gonna move just a single damage counter from the active Ogerpon to the Fezandipiti on the bench, so I can set up the Fezandipiti for future KO possibly. And I go for the Mirage Gate here. I got really lucky that I played Lost Vacuum during this turn because I needed that Drakloak in my Lost Zone to be able to play Mirage Gate, because you need 7 cards in the Lost Zone. And I actually, like, at one point I had counted that I had 6, and then I played that forgetting that I had Lost Vacuumed, and like in between turns, I don't know if you see it on my face because I don't know how visible I was about it, but I'm like, wait a minute, did I have enough cards in my Lost Zone? So I take the KO with a Phantom Dive onto the Ogerpon, and I put 4 damage counters onto the Raging Bolt with the energy, and then 2 onto the other one. Oh, there's only 1 on there right now, but then I noticed that and I say, hey, what are you doing, gang? Put another energy on there. Or another damage counter on there. My opponent's trying to figure out... This is the insane thing about Raging Bolt. We're already this late in the game, and like obviously they had a lot of resources because they just weren't using Raging Bolts at all. Yep, here I'm like, hey, where's that other damage counter? What the heck? But like he just hasn't had to use resources at this point because we've both been going so slow that now he has all the resources. So to do enough damage to KO a Dragapult EX, Raging Bolt needs to discard 5 energies, and they all have to be attached to Pokemon on the field. And it's insane how quickly he's able to get 5 energies multiple times here, as we'll see. But he's doing the math. He's trying to figure out how he's going to be able to go about it. I mean, kudos to him, because he found all of the twists and turns he needed to do to get all the energies to KO Dragapult in one hit. So he's playing the Professor Sada, which allows you to attach 2 energy cards to 2 different ancient Pokemon. And if you do so, you draw 3 cards, I believe, off of it. Yes, you get the draw. So now he's got 3 energies. He needs 2 more on the field. He hasn't manually attached for the turn. So there is one possibility, but he's going to go for the Nest Ball. He's going to go in, find an Ogerpon EX, which will allow you to Teal Dance for the turn, if you have a Grass Energy in your hand, which would allow for an energy attached, making it possible for 5 energy. He's going to flip out a Pokégear on me, say, hey, look at this. Both those flip outs were accidental, but it's funny to think somebody would do that. Okay, well, apparently Mega Charizard EX and Full Art Terapagos EX or Secret Art Terapagos EX are up on the board. They're just kind of playing around with the stream, apparently. I'm sure they knew. I mean, they had our deck list, so technically they could have like chucked up cards on there, but I don't think they were paying that much attention to the stream, because they were also running the store. But I don't know. I don't know how closely they were watching. But we do see the Teal Dance. So now my opponent just needs a singular energy card to attach. Plays the Night Stretcher, finds another Ogerpon, so you can Teal Dance again. So now there's more than enough. We see that he also has an electric energy in the hand, so you can attach that for the turn as well. They have more than enough energy to KO this Dragapult this turn. So unfortunate, but I do have a Drakloak with all the energies it needs on there. And I have a Dragapult in my hand, spoilers, to evolve that Dragapult. So I'll have another one next turn. But he does put down the Bravery Charm. So I've already used my Lost Vacuum, so I can't get rid of this Bravery Charm. And the additional 50 HP makes it so I can't KO this Raging Bolt now. Now my only hope here was that during his Bellowing Thunder attack, he discarded all the energies off of the active Raging Bolt instead of like the one on the bench, because I was going to pull the one up off the bench, use Alakazam to move 20 damage counters to it, and then KO it. But unfortunately, my opponent is too smart for that, which, as we can see by his gameplay, makes a lot of sense. He's been playing very smart. So he discards from he only discards 1 energy from the active Raging Bolt, so it can still very easily get attacking on the following turn. And then discards all the ones off of the one that I am able to KO. So I'm not getting rid of extra energy, because I don't have a way to KO this active Raging Bolt. I mean, he doesn't necessarily know that I don't have another Lost Vacuum, but this is like the smarter play, right? Because this is the one that's more likely to survive the turn. Now I promote my Drakloak, because I got a little Dragapult in my hand, but I will be able to flip the script and Recon Directive before I do that. Not that it's going to help too much here, but we might as well go for it, see if we can pull anything off. Mostly I have to hope he doesn't have like Professor Sada's or enough energies to attach this next turn. So I'm going to counter catcher up the one that I am able to KO, because that also like slows down the Professor Sada, right? Because Professor Sada will only be able to attach a single energy unless he has another ancient Pokemon he's able to bring in. So there's the flip the script. There's the Recon Directive. I Pokégear. I've got 8 cards left in my deck. I think I was kind of also looking for Iono at this point, and as we previously mentioned, Iono is in the Lost Zone. I didn't realize it until a little bit later, so I grabbed the boss's orders. Because if I would have still had Iono at this point, I could have got him down to 1 card, and it would have been next to impossible for him to get all the energy he needed for the upcoming turn. But we chucked Iono really early on, so that's not in the cards, as they say. I do use my Radiant Alakazam. Get the I didn't have the Dragapult in hand, but I had the Night Stretcher to grab it from the discard. Then evolve. Looking through my massive hand, not a whole lot in there that can do much about anything. So I just have to close up the turn with the Phantom Dive, taking the KO on the active Raging Bolt, and hope that he doesn't have the resources to power up this Raging Bolt enough to KO my Dragapult. I am thinking about using Colress Experiment here. I think at this point I wasn't sure if I had Iono left or not. I'm like, well, do I have enough cards in my deck to do Colress Experiment? Which I did. And I also had Super Rod in my hand, so I could buff up my deck a little bit just to make sure. I kind of wanted to start getting another Dragapult ready in case this one got hit but didn't die. And if I needed to mess around with something more, you know, I'm fishing. I'm looking for any possible out to the situation. But unfortunately, I think the only out was Iono, and it was in the Lost Zone. It's ironic because previously, I think right before this match, I'm like, oh, I don't use Iono very often in this deck. I might get rid of it. But then we have this situation happen where it would have been really useful to have, but it got really early on. Again, just this monster of a deck. And I have to just go for the KO on the Dragapult. And then I do have Sableye in my hand with a Psychic Energy. So I do put some damage counters on the Greninja. I didn't necessarily need to put damage counters on the Greninja. Because Sableye can KO a full health Greninja. So essentially my plan here is that I survive the turn, which might not have been possible. But I was hoping for it, and then bring in Sableye, switch, and KO the Greninja for my final prize. My opponent plays 2 Pokemon catchers. Both of them fail, thankfully, so that he has to go for the big swing with the Raging Bolt. But I've been alluding to it here constantly. We see, I think that's Professor Others right off the rip, but we do see the energy retrieval, which is going to get him 2 energies here. So you can deal Dance twice with Ogerpon. So now there are 3 energies on the board. So he only needs to get 2 more out here, and one of them has to be a fighting energy onto Raging Bolt for the possible attack. And you see, yep, I already shake my head. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've already got my hand out ready to punch him. I'm ready to do the Nux. Good game. Because, yeah, I knew that was end already at that point. As soon as he had the second Raging Bolt to power up as well with Professor Sada, got him the 2 energies he needed. And then he was like, oh yeah, were you looking for the Iono? I'm like, yeah, but it was in the Lost Zone. So unfortunately we do end up losing that match, but it's still a very good game. Kudos to my opponent. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed seeing this, be sure to hit that like and subscribe, because I'll try to do this more often. I don't necessarily have the capability to record live games, but if I ever end up on stream and I get the permission of whoever is running the stream to upload it, I will do so. But thank you so much for joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you have not already, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good night, everybody.